Hey guys, so we're getting started on a new project today and just wanted to give you a fair warning that the first 12 minutes of this video is going to be me explaining the project, the parameters of it, how it's going to be constructed, all that kind of stuff. So you'll be staring at some prints. I'll go through and explain as much detail as I possibly can, but if you want to skip that and just go straight to the construction, you can skip to the 12-minute mark in this video and that will get you to the quote live action. Hey guys, so getting started today, what I went ahead and did is I printed myself out a big set of prints of this track plan, or this layout plan, I should say. And I went ahead and I color coded some stuff and I actually broke down this layout into modules. Now, what I did for that is, this is a 6-inch grid with a 1-inch grid on the inside of it. We'll get to that in a moment. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to create basically my own yardstick. I wanted to create something that I could use to quickly measure things on these prints. So I went ahead and I took a piece of plywood and I actually made myself a ruler. So what I've got here is I've got it marked 1 through 19. It just happened to be how long it was. And then I went through and highlighted the 8-foot marks. And the reason I did that is because the longest material I can get here in the United States is 8 feet. Obviously, I try to keep things a little shorter when I can, but, so here's what I did. So, this is actually the top layer. So it's the topmost of the layer. I've got a big return loop here area, and then I've actually got what's going to be a half circle cutout area. And this is going to be so he can stand up inside this portion and still reach into these back areas that are going to be a little more difficult to reach from inside the layout. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this layout is actually pretty tall. So it's sitting at 64 inches, but so 64 inches, that's, for me, that's eye level. What I've done here is I've broken it into 8-foot modules. And then the corners in particular, I made 4 foot by 4 foot for this one. And I did this on purpose because working with rectangles here is going to be a lot easier than actually running this angle through. Now, I have had to do that in a couple areas, and I'm going to handle each corner of this layout in a different way. So hopefully when you see me building this, you'll understand just how complicated it really can get. So the top layer is pretty simple. And this actual module here is actually on the middle layer. We'll get to that in just a second. All right, so this is the middle layer. So again, I have gone through and broken all this stuff into modules, and all of these joints throughout all 3 pages of this plan are all in the same spot. So, I know this is going to be 3 layers of benchwork, all on this one module. It's rectangular, no big deal. So, as we started, the layout starts up here and it works its way around. It goes over a bridge and then comes onto this middle deck. Now, the big thick black lines here, those are actually signifying what is actually going to be supporting the benchwork. So when I build a table frame, I'm building different shapes. But the idea is I have a piece of plywood along the back that's 3.5 inches tall. And then I've got fingers that stick out that support the different levels. Now in this case, it's going to be like a shape of the letter E for these areas and most of the layout in particular, but they might jut out a little further or come back a little further. So the purpose of these drawings in part is so I understand just how deep I need to make these areas. So as I said, the layout starts up here, works its way around, and then it comes down to this middle layer here. I've got this big thick area supporting the background, and then I've got an open area here. This will actually probably get continuous through this area, and then it'll be open for the bottom deck. So we go around. All of this benchwork tip for most of this is actually going to be 24 inches deep. So these middle layers are actually going to be 21.5 inches deep versus 24 to account for the 3.5 inches of the support framing in the back. Now, yes, there are some tricks you can do to make that a little thinner, but for the purposes of this layout and how big it is, how big the space is, it makes more sense to just go with the simple method of the 3.5 inch thicket. Over here on this area in particular, I know I've got some complicated grading to do, so while this entire layout is slowly grading down as it turns corners, this area in particular, not only is it coming down 4 inches to get over to here, but this back line is actually coming down 8 inches. Now, yes, that is going to be an extreme grade. We're probably talking 7%, something like that. However, I've been told to go ahead and do it because he's going to be running one or two engines with 2 or 3 boxcars, and that's it. And that's to get down into this lower area where he's going to have some switching, and then that's going to tie into this whole area, which is going to be a whole industrial switching area that's actually underneath the main layer of track, which will sit 4 inches above that. So these tracks here will come around and join in. And then this whole area in particular, the whole center area here, this is all going to be flat. So I've got some different layering things I need to do as far as adjusting little things here or there. And then coming around here, this is actually going to turn into a yard space. So this whole back area here, so the front, 18 inches or so is all going to be yard. And then this back portion here, which is actually signified in purple, is going to be a ramp that grades down to the bottommost level. So the bottommost level here, and we start over here. This is where the purple comes in. I just wanted to quickly interject that this is actually a grade table, and it is available via Google Sheets down in a link below. Into this bottommost level, and all of this here, this side is all going to be graded down, and then from here this way it's all going to be flat. So what I'm doing is I'm using a multiple of different methods to grade down, and I'll talk a little more about how I'm going to do the grading here in a second. But so again, the layout continues around. I bump back here. So all of this dark area here, that's actually going to be hidden area. So only the front 12 inches of benchwork is going to be exposed, even though it's actually 24 inches deep here. And the reason for that is it's sitting so low that you can't see much further back than that over here on this side, because this benchwork is only going to be sitting, 6 or 8 inches above the other layer. So you won't be able to see that far back in. And we're going to play with some techniques to get a little more visibility, but for the purposes of what he's modeling, the area of the country that he's modeling, this is going to work out perfectly. So again, we're just rounding the corner here, and then once we get over here, this area is going to be a lot taller. So it's going to be more towards the 8 or 10 inches of clearance on this end. So he's got more room, so we're making it deeper so he can swing the track in and get it turned around, because this whole area here is actually going to be a paper mill, and then he's actually going to have a car float over here in the water, and the water will actually sit 2 inches lower than everything else. But we'll get to those details when we get to it. Keep in mind that this layout is 18 feet by 25 feet, so 25 feet from end to end. So this is not a small layout by any means. It's actually larger than the garage I'm going to be building it in. So starting back at the top, how we're going to handle the grades is a little different. So the way the plan is set up is every time you turn a corner, the layout drops 4 inches. So in this corner, it actually drops 4 inches, 4 inches here, and then 4 inches across this bridge, and so on. And realistically, dropping 4 inches in a 4 foot by 4 foot space, not a great idea. So what we're going to do is, instead of putting the drop down right here, we're going to actually move it over here. So we're starting the grade back here. So I've got 13 feet roughly between here and here. And then I've got another 13 or 14 feet between here and here. And then this whole back side is actually going to be flat. He's got some sort of yard or something he's building in there. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to do the corner technique unlike this corner. I'm going to do it over here, but we're going to start the grade about 3 or 4 feet in on both sides. And then I'm actually going to increase this transition. So it drops 4 inches here and drops 4 inches here, but I'm actually going to drop this corner 5 inches. So along the second segment, I'll drop 5 inches. So, and I'll feather it in through the 2 corners. So you won't really see the difference. But what that does is that reduces the grade in this corner to 3 inches. So when I transition, it's going to be a little softer. And then this whole module here actually is allowed to have grade on it. So I'm going to use that to my advantage and take care of that, because I really can't put a grade in this corner either. So the grades are going to bounce between 2 and 3%, but as the layout owner has told me, that's not a big deal, because his trains aren't going to be more than like 12 or 14 cars, and that's going to make him happy. So he'd rather have the flat spaces than have the perfectly low grade. So again, this is the same module that was on the previous page. So this is all grading down here. This whole area here is going to be flat, and then we're going to transition down again in through the corners. So like I said, the grades are going to change based on the module, the area, and so on. So it's super, super complicated, but it should be fun to build. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to start cutting some of the frames that support these modules, because the modules for the frames for these 2 modules, this corner, and these 2 modules are all going to be basically the same, and there are little modifications here or there. So I'm going to go ahead and take some plywood, start cutting sheets up, and we'll move on to the next segment. Okay, so while I'm ripping some plywood into strips here, I wanted to explain what's going on with the lighting and why it's wavy. So I have been having an issue over the last year or so with my video settings, which I finally figured out. And then I'm also having an issue with the lights themselves. I actually replaced my lights about a year ago, and this problem developed as a result of those. So I'm replacing them again as we speak, and in subsequent videos you will see this issue get better. So I apologize, and thank you for your understanding while I fix this. So now that I've got the plywood cut down into more manageable sized pieces, I am drawing myself a couple templates for my dual deck cross members, and I'm going to go ahead and get these cut to size. And the purpose of these is I'm actually going to make 2 or 3 of these for the multiple sizes that I'm running currently. And then I'm actually going to build them in a different way rather than running all 30 or 40 of these through the table saw. So I'm just going to cut out the corners here, get them quickly set up. And then I'm actually going to secure them to my outfeed table here in preparation for the next step, which is I'm actually going to use a router to actually cut the majority of these multi-deck cross members. And here you can see this is just a little bit faster than full speed, but as you can see, it is a lot quicker than cutting these things on the table saw. So it is a little bit of an investment to buy a router like this and then to use the proper bits and all that. But when you're making as many of these things as I do, it's just faster, safer, and all kinds of other reasons why to make it quicker. And now these I'm cutting off the top because it's actually going to be a step down on the front, because there's going to be a grade going across the front edge. And then now I'm going to go ahead and start drilling some holes. So I set up a couple hard stops again on my outfeed table, and then I'm just clamping these things in place. And I'm going to drill all my holes. So after some cleanup, I'm going to go ahead and switch things up and switch to my Craig machine. And I'm going to start drilling some pocket holes on all of these. And you can quickly see that using the machine like this just makes things infinitely faster. So the top of this particular bracket is a little thicker because I'm actually going to cut it down later on once I know where it needs to be cut. But I'm going ahead and drilling a bunch of holes in it just so I have them. You can see what they look like. And then it's just rinse and repeat. I do this a whole heck of a lot to make sure that I've got everything prepped and ready to go for next week's episode when I start assembling this giant layout. So thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below as well if you want to enter for the next 1,000 subscriber giveaway. And we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.